All right, everybody. Get that off the screen there. Wasn't ready for that yet. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rough Report. I am, of course, Jimmy Ruffian, and I'm reporting from downtown Toronto. We got some things to talk about today. As you can see in the subject header, I'm going to do a bit of a continuation from that article I talked about last week in how capitalism creates pointless jobs. There's just a couple of notes that I wanted to hammer on a bit further in regards to that. Of course, we're going to be talking about, the further ongoing discovery of tragedy in Canada's residential school system. And hopefully get to some things on a slightly lighter note in the world of politics, and maybe somehow, despite this heavy subject matter, be able to, so it feels inappropriate to say have fun, but hopefully we can mix it up a little bit and not just be soaked in tragedy this whole time. I think we could all use a little bit of a reprieve from that in one way or another. Speaking of, let's get to one of the lighter subjects first. This is something that's sort of dominated the discourse as of recent. Anybody paying attention to leftist stuff going on in the internet world surely knows about this. Let's see here. So, as anybody who's watched this show consistently, which is, to say a few people, but to anyone that has watched it consistently, knows that I like to rip on Steven Crowder quite a bit, because I see him as a extremely racist and bigoted figure in the online world, in terms of like internet TV and podcasting. He's probably one of the most just awful actors in the whole thing, and so I've done some critiques on him in the past, and of course it's been an ongoing thing in that world where it seemed like for at least a few years, Steven Crowder has been avoiding debating Sam Seder, kind of going back to an incident at a booking at Politicon a few years back, where upon Crowder finding out that the person he was set to debate was Sam Seder, he suddenly had a reason to not be at Politicon. And then something similar happened where a debate with Ethan Klein of the H3 podcast, which is some OG YouTube personality stuff, had something scheduled, and I think Sam was invited to be a part of that conversation, or Steven knew Sam would be part of that conversation. So suddenly there was a medical emergency with his pregnant wife, which seemed legit at first, that he had to avoid it, but then suddenly the interview was rescheduled for a time when they knew Sam Seder would be going live on his show. So it just seemed really suspect, and there's kind of like more to it than that. I'm glazing over the details. If you want to look into this further, by all means. And thank you to everybody who just joined the stream. Say hello. I love to hear you in the chat and on the live chat. So comment, ask questions as we go here. I enjoy hearing from you, and whether that to disagree with me or mock what I'm saying, whatever, to do whatever you like. So yeah, I'm just going to show a bit of this incident that went down on the H3 podcast, where essentially it seemed like Crowder wanted to debate Ethan Klein, and Ethan Klein is a little bit more of a liberal lefty, definitely kind of outwardly anti-racist and anti-misogynist. in a lot of his content. So basically what it came down to was Ethan Klein said something to the effect of, it's okay to believe the CDC when it comes to, if you're not medically or scientifically savvy, maybe taking the advice of the CDC is probably a good idea. And, you know, right, seems pretty obvious, right? That's kind of regular stuff. But Crowder wanted to debate on that note. But, you know, Ethan describes himself as a non-political person, so he brought in a little bit of assistance. Let's see how that turned out. And let's try and figure if Crowder really was trying to avoid debating Sam here. Let's watch his reaction.
With all that being said, we figured let's get someone who is familiar with the topics, who does spend their time thinking about politics, and who is, you know, unlike me, smart. So we've got a little surprise for Steven Crowder. So let's all enjoy the debate.
I'm really glad to have my next guest on the show. And I've always said this, I always respect people who enter into the arena. And, you know, we've had a lot of debates on this show, which is different from like a Change My Mind where we sit down and have conversations. But my old Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach always said, if you come a switch, we go switch. You go spicy, we're going to do a little spicy. So we always try and keep it as respectful as possible. And I really do appreciate the guy making the time, because a lot of people has a huge YouTube channel, several YouTube channels, one of the OGs. A lot of people watch him. You know.
Yeah, I should watch that mute button. I just realized I was muted there. I was saying that, of course, when, you know, even with his jiu-jitsu coach, he had to do a bad impression of his accent. He couldn't just like quote a guy without doing the accent too, right? Anyway.
Know him. Some of you like him. Some of you don't. Same can be said for me. Ethan Klein from H3H3. Ethan, thanks, man, for making the time.
You're very welcome. And I just want to say, I know you called me. You said that I would be a layup. Which is fine. And I think you're right, because I don't think I'm a very good debater. I think you know that. So.
Yeah. I just wanted to go, like, yeah, he obviously does know that. And he did call him a layup.
Oh, I didn't want to make it too easy for you.
Oh, okay.
So I've prepared.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
Dan,
what we were going to talk about is, you know, the initial quote that happened. I think he's looking off there. The initial quote that kind of was turned into a little bit of a meme, which wasn't intentional, and was you saying you don't even have to.
Let's note that also Steven's voice is shaking. He legitimately does sound a little bit nervous. I wonder if he's nervous beforehand because that Sam might be suddenly joining this conversation, or he was just nervous to be debating an actual adult that might know a few more things than you know, a college kid on a campus. You know, not to say that college kids don't know things. You know what I mean, though.
Think about it regarding the CDC, and I disagree with that. I think people should think about it. I believe, and we talked about this through playful ribbing, in an aggregation of medical authorities and scientific voices to make an informed and rational decision. So where do you think that I'm wrong on that?
Steven, do you know that the Spartans are like?
Okay, so yeah, as Jessica's mentioning in the chat here, yeah, his knuckles, his hands. So when he noticed that Ethan was like looking off there, it's like he knew something was up. He was starting to get a little nervous about like, okay, what's Ethan gonna pull here? You know? Yeah, I think you're right about that, Jessica.
Practice man love with children.
Oh, geez. Okay, so this is what's gonna happen. What did I tell?
The Spartans are
okay. So also pay attention to like the hypocrisy that's about to happen here, because Ethan Klein immediately goes for, you know, just being like kind of like glib and sarcastic and kind of approaching this conversation in almost like a purposefully kind of I'm not taking you seriously sort of way, and how Steven reacts to that, but then how Steven reacts in turn when Sam walks in.
They are like practice man love with children?
Oh, geez. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. What did I tell you? He was going to do anything he could to avoid. Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!
I love that he said those words out loud, like he was legit caught off guard, like he was legit nervous that he was going to see Sam pop up on this screen, and the words, "Oh my God, Sam Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!" literally came out of his mouth. What a just chef's kiss. Beautiful moment in internet TV history, if you ask me. It's just wonderful stuff.
I had no idea this was going to happen. I thought Ethan was a stand-up guy. This is where we are. Yeah, I told Dave. Remember I told you?
So immediately, Steven Crowder gets cut off the screen, and then this guy walks in with this kind of like eye of the tiger look on his face, like, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm gonna sit down in the chair and get ready to jump in for my buddy Steven here. And they're gonna like not show Steven on camera for a bit. It's a little bit odd.
Yeah, I told you. I said I guarantee you he's gonna do anything he can to avoid the debate.
Oh, I just think he believes that he should debate you.
No, he doesn't. He just takes advantage of women with mental health issues.
Steven,
Ethan Klein doesn't stand up and do his own
I gotta
fighting.
say,
It's just hilarious. Let's bring on FM.
That you would do anything to avoid talking to me. I think the point that you made
Yes,
at the beginning of
Joe
this
Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan and Ben
Rubin
and Dave
Ben
Rubin and Jordan
Shapiro.
Peterson and Noam Chomsky and Sam Harris. Everyone's been avoiding.
And not just attempting
Sam
to get
Cedar.
your audience.
Notice how he just tossed Noam Chomsky in there. Like he's so nervous about this conversation he can't even keep track of the names that he's listing off. Like, why would Noam Chomsky be listed amongst all those sort of like right-wing people? Sam and Chomsky have never crossed paths in that capacity. If anything, maybe Sam in the past has interviewed Chomsky. I know his late co-host, the late and great Michael Brooks, I believe, interviewed Chomsky on a number of occasions. So if anything, they would really have no reason to debate. They're very much kind of more or less on the same ideological side. But it's just funny that he's just had to list off these names,
By jumping in.
Well, I debated with Charlie Kirk. Steven, I mean, it's about issues. Let's talk about those issues.
That's what you're doing
some
here.
Valid points.
You're
that
so
I think
Yes, that is exactly what he's doing here. He wants to have a legitimate debate, but as you can see, Steven Crowder and his co-host just want to talk over and yell and very much not allow that to happen.
clever. I had no idea that you were taking your show off early last time, coming in today with your pig pen peanuts
I
eyes.
wish everything.
Okay, it's like I'm going to be pausing this a lot because there's a lot of little things to be pointing out and what Steven's trying to pull here and the things that he says. Just notice what he said there is he noticed the last time Sam took his show off the air early. That relates to the original time of the scheduled debate between Steven and Ethan, where because Ethan had previously name-checked Sam in regards to debating Crowder, I think Crowder was a little bit nervous that this exact scenario might play out. And so evidently just what Steven let slip there is that he had been paying attention and monitoring Sam's show. And he is knowledgeable of when Sam is and is not on the air.
You take those off with a velveteen buttons.
we must have been
Black
very
eyes.
right about
Oh,
this,
also-
Steven. I don't know why.
No one.
Stand up and do his
Funny,
own
I gotta
fighting.
say,
Let's
Bring it
It's
on.
just
Listen.
hilarious. Let's bring on
producers
FM.
that you would do anything to avoid talking to me. I think the point that you made
Yes,
at
that's
the
right.
beginning of
Joe
this
Rogan.
was-
Yeah, Joe Rogan and Ben
Rubin
and Dave
Ben
Rubin and Jordan
Shapiro.
Peterson and Noam Chomsky and Sam Harris. Everyone's been
Listen
avoiding.
to
Not
this.
just attempting
Sam
to get
Cedar.
your audience by jumping in.
Well, I debated with Charlie Kirk. Steven, I mean, it's about issues.
Right,
Let's
right
talk
here?
about those
Yeah.
issues.
That's
I
what
think
you're
you have
doing
some
here.
valid
Yeah.
points.
You're
that
so
I think we
clever.
should
I had no
discuss.
idea that you were taking your show off early last time, coming in today with your pig pen peanuts
I
eyes.
wish everything.
Okay, pig pen peanuts eyes. Remember that he said that, and at first that sort of insult or attempted insults just seems really like a bizarre reference, but there's something actually really insidious about it, and we'll unpack that in a second here.
You take those off with a velveteen buttons.
Well, you must have been
Velveteen
very worried about
buttons.
this, Stephen. I don't know why.
No
It would
one's
be-
worried
Oh, come
about
on,
it.
so
Sam. I
concerned.
didn't want to
Well,
do
let's have the
Sam,
debate.
come
If
on.
no
I'll
one's
tell you what.
worried,
I have a
let's do
general. I have a general.
This is a
rule.
great
I
opportunity.
don't start a
to-
debate based with people on a lie. And how
Or
about you get to a,
sabotaging.
how about you get to
Stephen,
a
show
30th of
yourself,
the
you
audience
coward.
share?
Stephen, show yourself.
30th
Don't show
of the
your
audience.
co-host.
Ethan, you should show
Stephen,
yourself.
excuse-
Why,
Ethan,
Stephen,
how
why
can
are
you respect
afraid
yourself
to
as a
be
man,
on?
brother?
Something so strongly
Stephen, you
that
are
you're
such
not
a coward.
willing to
Stop
debate.
showing your little
I
leprechaun
thought you would
co-host who
welcome
comes
that.
out
And yeah, so of course there's Ethan showing himself.
dressed like your
Ethan,
sidekick.
come on, Ethan, why do you have to bring
I
on
thought
Show
a
you would
guy
welcome
Stephen.
this, Stephen.
30th
I'm
of the
really
viewership
Why
of
is
this
it-
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. So you have
So Stephen goes on to talk about you have a 30th of the viewership as me. You're not worth my time to debate, and that's one of the reasons I won't debate you because you're not popular enough. Sam's show has 1 million subscribers on YouTube, a large Twitter following. Sure, overall in terms of the social media subscribers and stuff that Sam has, Steven Crowder's show is more popular and does have more subscribers, but him using that as an excuse to not debate Sam is very strange because Crowder has debated people with even 10% of Sam Cedar's audience. He has debated with people with 100,000 followers. So the fact that for some reason Sam Cedar's just not popular enough to be worth his time is obviously disingenuous. He is debated. Steven Crowder has debated several other people, and as Sam points out in this, it obviously doesn't matter to his audience whether the person's popular enough to debate or not, seeing as he debates random college kids on campuses that nobody knows all this time. That's part of his whole popular shtick. So the whole thing is disingenuous, but I wanted to point out something near the end here before Crowder runs away, because Crowder ultimately does run away. It's just a shouting match for several minutes before, like just what you heard. It's just that, but it's pretty funny. But I wanted to point out something that Steven Crowder tries to say repeatedly.
You
Show
say
because
that
This
you
is
I
just
was going to
hearsay
go-
and gossip.
But how can
I
he
have-
say
I've
you
never
don't
met more of
follow
a
your
woman.
career when he wants
Well, I
to
don't
keep
even need to-
debating?
I've never met more of a woman. Of course, in Steven Crowder's world, just somebody being a woman is an insult.
I don't
need to
know.
talk
It's
about any
bizarre.
of this.
Then.
All right.
Let's talk
okay.
about the issue.
So,
the
Ethan, do you want to
CDC.
have a conversation, Ethan?
Let's talk
about the
about big
vaccine
tech.
because
Ethan, do you want to have a
Absolutely, I
conversation?
do.
You're going to hide.
You felt
Absolutely,
so
I do.
strongly
Oh,
about
big tech.
So why are you hiding behind Sam Cedar?
Oh no,
Cedar?
no,
Have
no!
a
Me and Sam are
conversation
aligned. I'm not
with
hiding.
him.
He just
Well, you're just a
he knows the
liar.
issue.
So you're a
Ethan,
liar.
because remember we
You
said-
brought
hold
in
on a second,
somebody
hold on
else
a
to
second.
debate.
I mean, it
Yeah,
sort of
yeah, yeah.
feels like
It's
you guys are the ones
ridiculous.
who are hiding.
Really?
Ethan
Hiding?
is being
No, no. This is
completely
actually
open about it.
Who snuck in on you?
who's the
Here,
guy
let
who
me
never
forward.
appeared? Shadow of comedy. H3.
Steven,
you know
you're wearing a
that we
holster.
agreed.
So what?
Hold on a second. Yeah.
Steven,
H3,
you're wearing
you're
a gun
wearing a
holster.
Yeah, we
holster.
agreed.
So what?
Hold on a second. Yeah. So I want to normalize responsible gun ownership. Is that your?
Just walking around wearing a gun is really responsible, apparently. Here, let's see, get a little further into this.
Take off the glasses.
Let's debate.
There it is.
Don't
Take off
hide
the
behind the
glasses.
Don't be a
glasses.
Don't
coward.
say
I
let's
will-
debate, Ethan. You've
I
lost
will
that.
coward.
Don't even
Coward.
argue bullshit.
All right.
Debate
this
the
is
issues.
sad.
What
This
does
is
it matter who
sad.
you
Shut
debate,
up.
coward?
All right, good. You guys are
Wow.
good. Thank you.
Coward.
Appreciate it. Won't even take off the glasses.
I was right.
All right, yeah,
We
you
knew
can-
it.
You
won't even take off the
You
glasses.
run away twice. Cold feet again.
Come on, Steven.
He makes several references to let me see you take off your glasses. His co-host mentions amongst that, I just want to see if you have a soul in there. So Pigpen Peanut's eyes. Peanut's eyes are just little dots, right? That's how the peanuts are drawn. But he specifically says Pigpen. And then Velveteen Rabbit Button Eyes. And then, hey, take off your glasses. I just want to see if you have those beady little eyes. What Steven Crowder basically Steven Crowder is outright calling Sam Cedar, who is Jewish, a dirty Jew. That is the essence of those insults. There's a common racist caricature of Ashkenazi Jews is to depict them with dark, beady eyes, it's an anti-Semitic trope to insinuate that Jewish people do not actually have souls. And basically he was saying he was trying some F-tier bullying there to reference the fact that Sam is Jewish. And I'm sure Stephen is quite aware that Ethan Klein is Jewish as well. So basically live on the air as an attempt to avoid actually debating any issues with somebody who demonstrably knows the issues very well, such as Sam, he called him a dirty Jew. Like how anyone can think that Steven Crowder is at all intelligent or worth his salt in regards to actually debating issues is nuts. That it's beyond excusable. And so like to the Jewish host of this show and to the person he brought on specifically to talk about the issues with Stephen, Stephen went for anti-Semitic tropes. Yeah, fight like hell, and he runs away, right? Like, he's wearing this shirt that says fight like hell, and he runs away. Steven Crowder, he can't debate shit. He doesn't have a leg to stand on. It's just silly. Anyway, let's get on to the next story, because I didn't actually expect to spend this much time on this. It's just so funny. So I encourage people, definitely look into Sam. First and foremost, Sam and his late great co-host, who has a lot of content out there despite him no longer being with us, Michael Brooks. These, in terms of people on the internet who are very genuine figures in political discourse and actually do excellent work in terms of articulating thoughts, disseminating information, good information, and honestly being pretty entertaining about it along the way. I really can't recommend looking into these guys enough. I think they have some of the best solid ideas about it out there, and there's a reason that Sam Cedar has a good reputation for people being afraid to debate him, because he's very skilled at it. In a world where much of this debate bro stuff out there is really kind of shit tier, low quality, sad attempts at discourse, I feel Sam is one of the people who's actually heightening the level of discourse, which is unfortunately all too not common these days. So on to the next story I wanted to cover here. Part 2 of the why capitalism creates pointless jobs. Because I sort of talked about on the note of, if last week I was kind of I sort of hammered on the note of like the inefficiency of a lot of jobs, where instead of getting to like where our productivity in terms of automation and things like that has gotten so good that there was this Keynesian idea around we would only need to work 15 hours a week because we've just become so efficient. And then in reality, what's happened is we created these positions where, you only are actually working about 15 hours a week, but you still have to be occupied and at your place of work or strapped to the desk still for 40 hours a week, despite only actually being productive for 15 hours of that time. There was a greater note that I wanted to expand on there. And in that way, I had it, my notepad here. There's a couple quotes from this article that I wanted to share, but I do say go and read the whole thing here. Let me properly credit the author here, David Graeber, who is an anthropologist. So, yeah, to quote the article here, but rather than allowing a massive reduction of working hours to free the world's population to pursue their own projects, pleasures, visions, and ideas, we have seen the ballooning, not even so much of the service sector of the administrative sector, up to and including the creation of a whole new industries like financial services, telemarketing, the unprecedented expansion of sectors like corporate law, academic and health administration, human resources, and public relations. And these numbers did not even reflect on all those people whose job is to provide administrative, technical, or security support for these industries, or for that matter, the whole host of ancillary industries, dog washers, all-night pizza delivery men, etc. They only exist because everyone else is spending so much of their time in working in all the other ones. So it becomes this sort of like snowball effect of occupational inefficiency. So this is what he proposes to articulate ultimately as bullshit jobs. And to go further, like to give another quote from the article, skipping a little bit ahead here, this is the main thing I wanted to hit on, because it really struck me in that, like, in some of the jobs that I've had that I felt like were kind of useless, but, you know, gotta get a paycheck, right? I've had these similar things occur to me, and actually working some of these jobs as a younger person, it was a bit of a political awakening in terms of my views and criticisms of capitalism. And it very much was along these same lines. So David writes, the answer clearly isn't economic. It's moral and political. The ruling class has figured out that a happy and productive population with free time on their hands is a moral danger. Think of what started to happen when this even began to be approximated in the 60s, you know, the kind of free love hippie movement. And on the other hand, the feeling that work is a moral value in itself, and that anyone not willing to submit themselves to some kind of intense work discipline for most of their waking hours deserve nothing. And that's extraordinary. It's extraordinarily convenient for those upper classes to have that be considered. I'm going into my own thing here, not quoting the article. To have that be considered culturally important, that it's woven into our minds as a working class people, that if you are not toiling away 40 hours a week, you deserve less, even if what you're toiling away at isn't ultimately that great a service to anyone. Just the mere fact that you're strapped to a desk and, you know, plugging in your hours to get I get to have a life voucher, I guess. Yeah, I just wanted to hit on that a little bit more because, yeah, let me repeat that. The feeling that work is a moral value in itself, and that anyone not willing to submit themselves to some kind of intense work discipline for most of their waking hours deserves nothing, is extremely convenient for them being the ruling class. So yeah, as it says in the little quote about the author there, David Graeber is a professor of anthropology at the London School of Economics. So there you go. That's someone from, you know, a background of academic expertise, clearly observing the fundamental inefficiencies of capitalism that essentially rob us of a certain quality of life, you know, so we don't upset the system that keeps the ruling class in the ruling position. And I think that's whether you be a socialist, a communist, an anarchist, a liberal, whatever the case may be, you should really question that. Whether you're skeptical of socialism and communism and more lefty ideas and concerned about them, or maybe learned that those are just fundamentally anti-democratic authoritarian positions, which is, you know, incorrect in a lot of ways and just disinformation. But whether you believe those things about leftist ideology or not, Actually, I think I just have my gain up too high, so you're hearing. There's a word for mouth sounds in voiceover world. I forget what it is now, but you're probably just hearing that. I am experimenting with boosting the signal and making it sound louder without necessarily being louder. So maybe you're hearing my mouth sounds. Sorry about that, Jason. But anyway, yeah, there's this idea. Oh, sorry, I got totally distracted there. Sorry. I like when the live chat goes off, though, because that gives me more to riff on than just like my own thoughts. Running solo on our first Thursday show. Come hang out with me. I'd love to. I'm on my own show right now. How late are you going, Jason? I don't know anything about your show, actually. Like, feel free to divulge and talk about it in the chat there. I'm all ears. But yeah, what was I saying? Oh, now I want to get back on track there. You threw me off, Jason, but that's okay. I enjoy being thrown off by the chat. Please engage in the chat. Don't not do that just because it threw me off my stupid little riff there. Yeah, here, let me get this stuff off my screen. I have way too much on my screen. I'm getting visually overstimulated here. I need a producer. I need a person to flip all the knobs and switches, not on camera, so I don't have to do it all. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to just emphasize that aspect of basically the programmed inefficiencies of how capitalism is not necessarily the most efficient system, and that it is designed to largely keep us occupied at things that maybe won't have us questioning the system that we spend most of our lives working on every day. So that's that. What was the next thing that I had here? I almost feel bad because it's like this stuff gets me kind of like in a certain dark mindset that I find myself having difficulty pulling out of sometimes. So in a weird sort of, I guess, white privilege way, I almost want to avoid talking about this sort of stuff, but we have to. And despite whatever my comfort level with that might be, it's something that we have to confront and unpack. And, you know, just recently we heard about the graves of 250 children found on the grounds of residential schools. And that was heart-shattering enough in of itself. And it started getting us thinking about our, and brought to the forefront, talking openly about this country's genocidal history. So yeah, let's get to the latest news that came forward today. A Saskatchewan First Nation announces discovery of 751 unmarked graves near a former residential school. It's said in the article that the graves may at some point have been marked, but were likely removed by the Catholic Church somewhere in the 1960s. And like marked as in it were a mass grave that were marked, not necessarily, you know, individual tombstones and things of the like. But yeah, that marking was removed somewhere around the 1960s. So as we go further down this rabbit hole, so to speak, and to explore our history, to do this investigation, to unearth these atrocities, it's going to become more and more obvious and more uncomfortable to people to learn about Canada's true history. especially when you're given a certain mindset about it in terms of how we're educated in school about Canada's history. We sugarcoat so much of it. I can vividly remember some of my public school history classes and how we talked about this stuff and how we glazed over the fact that this is a genocide. Not once was the word genocide ever used in any educational capacity in my public school experience. That's just not how it's taught. It's more or less taught that, we made good groovy agreements that we all agree on, and everything was signed, and everything is good now. And if things aren't good now, and you hear about things not being good, that's just, a few bad actors and some isolated unfortunate incidences. And that's the attitudes that culturally, through Canadian popular media, through our liberal education system, all of it, that is the framework that we're taught to have. And for a lot of people, being forced to address that this is how we've been taught, that this is how we've been shaped to think about our history, it can shake a person to their core, to realize that, much of the culture that they grew up in is a lie and based on tragedy. And people are going to have cognitive dissonance about it. They're going to have their fight-flight mechanisms flying off, going, like, how dare you? They're going to deny it. I recently had an exchange with I've always been intending to talk about this person a little bit more, but I'm talking about them now specifically in regards to how we tend to view these things. I'm going to do a bit soon. I've been kind of like working on it in the background on basically leftist online figures that I basically believe to be extremely bad faith actors and are just not good for the overall I don't know, for lack of a better term, let's call it scene. They're just not good for the scene. But notably in this case is somebody known as Samira Khan. You may have heard of her. She is a blue check mark. I think she describes herself as a journalist, and she's very much on the lefty, very communist side of things, like the kind of like tanky, if you will, if you're familiar with that term. She kind of leans on that side of things, but then and I think she said a lot of bad faith things in regards to that. But again, in specifically this subject, I had to respond and point this out, and it ended up incidentally being one of the most popular tweets I made for some reason. But this is it. Here, let's switch to the big screen. She says, "I'll never understand the millennial and Zoomer hatred for Christianity. It's just so bizarre to me." And my response is, churches were responsible in a massive part of huge genocides during colonization and stands as pillars of white supremacy. What the actual hell isn't there to understand? Like, what a genuinely someone who tries to stand up on the far left end of things and constantly question the West's coverage of how we view China and how we talk about the USSR and all those sort of things, being the type of critic that she is. It's an extremely bizarre thing to put forward. But then even more further down that rabbit hole, this is the sort of attitude that you see when it comes to the church. People's level of historical denialism, people's ways of just shielding themselves from this information and doing their best to not confront the uncomfortable truth, so to speak. This right here. From this random Twitter user, Barjomi Respecter. I'm probably not saying that right. That might be a term I'm just not familiar with. But anyway, yeah, actually, the Catholic Church was the sole voice arguing against slavery, genocide, and dehumanization of the Native Americans. Imagine. It was the crown and secular interests that wanted to rape, pillage, and plunder. It was the Catholic missionaries that argued for the humanity of the natives. It was Catholic missionaries that preserved the languages and traditions of native peoples. I urge you to actually research the history of the Catholic Church in America, as well as the Orthodox Church. He obviously doesn't know I'm talking about Canada and that I'm Canadian, and that, you know, American history doesn't reflect the rest of the world. Because like what he's saying is outright false. This is just a lie. This person is, you know, I ended up looking at their profile a little bit, and of course they are evidently a very Christian person and very in favor of the church. You know, but let's suppose that person is absolutely right about Catholics in America. Even then, they'd be absolutely wrong about Catholic missionaries in Africa, Catholic missionaries in South America, Catholics in the colonization of Canada through to today. As we've had, I'll show you a little clip of the type of denialism we're seeing from religious figures in regards to confronting the fact that they played a huge role in genocide. But yeah, so man, Samira Khan sucks. Just everything she says is so awful in most respects. Yeah, let me show you this thing. Oh. What? Oh, yes. There we go. Oh, yeah, I didn't. Okay, I don't have the video here. But there is a video of this guy. Basically, yeah, in a video, the pastor says Canadians should thank the Catholic Church for the good that was done at residential schools. Of course, this is going to try how they spin this. It's typical white supremacy talking points. You know, oh, sure, we tried to murder them and destroy their culture and ripped their children out of their arms and tried to make them forget their languages and their history and just completely wipe any evidence of their cultural existence off the map. Sure, we tried to do that, but think of all the good that was done. We gave them beds to sleep in and a roof overhead and a grave. To say, for anybody to say, oh, just look at the good that they did, though, in this scenario is horrendous. What do you think you're doing? I'm just baffled by that. Like, I understand that you want to defend your faith, and for the most part, it's not the faith that anybody is disparaging. I don't have a problem with people believing in Jesus Christ and following his example. If anything, more Christians should probably try a little bit better at doing that. But it's the institutions. It's this type of apologia. It's this type of the constant grasps for power, because that's what it's always been. Sure, the Catholic Church could be, on paper, considered the most charitable organization on earth. They give away more money than anybody, but they also spend more money on lobbying local governments that they operate in and around, which is essentially worldwide. But the local governments do those specific areas. They spend more money on lobbying those governments to limit or to make sure statute of limitation laws play in their favor. So if one of their priests had to skip town or country to avoid being prosecuted for their abuse of children, they could go back to where they were operating faster. They essentially spend a lot of money on creating a structure where it's like they know that one of their priests was abusing kids, and then pay lobby money so that priest can go back to that same spot and start working again with no without being held accountable. So no, it is for any of us, especially I think millennials and Zoomers, who in my experience have a lot of great respect for spirituality. I would say ostensibly more so than when I remember being in my early 20s and teenagers, really kind of a big thing to be an edgy atheist in those days and be, almost meaner about spirituality. So if anything, I think that has loosened up a bit. But the criticisms of the institutions of power that use those faiths to cause genocide, to create these toxic hierarchies, and further white supremacy worldwide. We have some serious criticisms about that. And the Catholic Church in this country specifically needs to be reined in. First of all, why are we funding their schools? Stop that immediately. There's just nothing good about having the Catholic school system operating the way it does in Ontario. And hell, abolish Catholicism from this land until they can clean up their act. It's absolutely garbage that this guy can genuinely say this. Think of all the good that was done. I can't even think of something that's analogous to how disgusting that sort of apologia is. Legitimately, what is wrong with you? If somebody could explain in a way that justifies this to me, please, by all means, go ahead and try, because I'm struggling. It's just, it really gets me. Just for people to think, oh, it was actually, no, the church did all the good things and they actually protected the humanity of Indigenous people. Even if in some scenario you could pull that, you could say that no, they it was the Catholic Church that wanted to defend the humanity of the Indigenous against the persecution of the Crown and the British. If you look at the history of Catholicism and its missionary work, again, specifically South America and Africa, you would know that their charitable cause in wanting to see the humanity in people is not about the preservation of their culture and respect for those people. It's about power over them. It's about teaching them Christianity and getting them under that umbrella, under the power of the church, to feed the power of the church. Yeah, we're going to show up and, you're all humans. We believe in your humanity. It's those big bad people over there that want to kill you. So if you follow our faith and do as we say, you will be, everything will be okay. We're here to save you. It's some level of abusive gaslighting bullshit that people who are Christian and Catholic need to get a lot more comfortable with confronting. I mean, I was baptized as a kid, but I certainly didn't grow up particularly religious. My parents had some religious values in terms of, like, just sort of generally believing there's a God, and the sort of like kind of moral basis of that. But we definitely didn't go to church a lot. Yeah. Oh yeah. The crazy thing, like, for people who say this stuff, Sean, I'm responding to Sean in the chat here. For the people that say things like this, they're not saying it as this, like, just a propaganda talking point to further their power. I'm sure there's some people who are maybe that self-aware, but I think a lot of them are saying this because they're genuinely believing it. Whether that be like they're genuinely believing it because it coddles their bias and it makes it so they don't have to confront uncomfortable realities, whatever the case. But they genuinely believe it, and that's the sick part about it, because in that genuine belief has to come the genuine belief that the genocide in the history of Canada was all good and right. That anything that the Catholic Church did was good, because look how it ended up so well for so many people. And it's just disgusting level of accountability dodging, of historical denialism. It really is legitimately, it's insane in a way. Not the most sort of politically correct term to use, because mental health and all that, but it's maddening. Like, I feel myself getting an anxiety depression wave that hits of stress that hits my brain, just trying to process the level of this shit, and it makes me feel like I'm going crazy, because it's not okay. I feel like that's the most obvious statement ever. This is not okay. It's far beyond being not okay. It's just in the past little while, we've found 1,000 bodies. 1,000. And we haven't even begun looking that hard. On the grounds of schools that were run by this church, essentially commissioned and sanctioned by the Canadian government. This is our history. So when people say don't celebrate Canada Day, what they're saying is don't celebrate this. Let's give a time of recognition to the horrific level of suffering that these people have endured. Like, we would consider it an absolute insult to play this level of apologia for the Holocaust of the Jewish peoples during Nazi Germany in World War II. If we tried to say in any capacity, we all have enough good sense in terms of our learning of history to know better than to say, well, look what the good that came from it. The vast majority of us know way better than to even think something like that, because it's disgusting. And we've been educated enough to know that. But when it comes to Canada's history of genocide, that carried on much longer than the Nazi Germany committing the Holocaust against the Jews did, and still continues on to this day. And if you, not that it's a competition by any means, and that should make a huge difference in this, but this genocide has gone on way longer and racked up way more deaths and racked up way more ongoing and actionable suffering. But yet we continue to deny it. Yet we continue to pretend that it's okay. In that it was a long time ago, and that this isn't still happening. Again, I remind you, the last residential school closed in 1996. Yeah, these people never reach a point of cognitive dissonance or being aware of their cognitive dissonance, Sean, because again, they've never been forced to confront this. They've never been forced to be accountable to it. They have coddled themselves in a rewrite of history that has taught them that this stuff is good and right. And it's just beyond the pale. I would really like just dare anybody to challenge me on this point. If you disagree with anything that I'm saying, if you think there's a point that I'm missing in any of this, go ahead. Go ahead. I dare you. Just, it's really something else. And I'm sure I'm going to be talking a lot more about this because this ain't over. So please, I implore you, when people are saying do not celebrate Canada Day, as it is a celebration of genocide and genocide denialism, it's obvious that that is what it is. It can't be anything else, right? So yeah, just respect the request. Understand that the disgusting thing that you know was disgusting that happened during World War II happened for 160 years here in Canada, and it's ongoing. Who knows how many graves there are? So unless you are, I don't know, perfectly comfortable with celebrating, Nazis are cool day or something like that, then maybe don't celebrate Canada Day, because it's getting harder and harder for people to anyway be able to say that isn't what it is, that the celebration of Canada is not a celebration of genocide, because those two things are completely intertwined. Simple as that. I don't know how else I could further press it to people. That is an absolute fact. The existence of Canada and its ongoing existence, and how we continue to approach this issue in any power structure through government or church or just our overall popular culture, we fail at this. We are inhuman at this. Is that something you really want to celebrate? I don't. Maybe we can start to light fireworks when we've done anything in serious way of reparations. Maybe I'd want to light fireworks when the Indigenous in this country have as much access to clean water as we do. Because that's one of the ways that genocide continues to happen in this country, is that all these places where we did sign agreements to say that they would have proper access to the resources in the land, and we deny them that. There are so many Indigenous communities across this country that continue to not have proper access to potable water. Could you imagine, like right now, like living in, I live in Toronto. I grew up in Hamilton. In Hamilton, is considered very much a working class / poor town. And I grew up, fairly poor economically. Even then, like, could you just imagine not having water? That the water that came out of your tap was virtually unusable, so you had to like boil it and filter it first. the idea to most of us seems completely foreign and bonkers, because it is. But this is something that we allow to continue. It's something that we just consider normal. That's just the way it is. It's not okay, guys. And I'm sorry to say guys as a gender neutral catch-all. It's not okay, my people. I don't know, what's a better way to say that? It's not okay. Ladies and gentledoms. Let's go with that. I like that one. Yeah. So yeah, that about rounds out the hour. So let me continue, just going beyond my time a little bit than I normally do, to do a closing out story here. That's on a slightly lighter note, but still has some, perhaps some pretty solid commentary you could yield from it. From the absolute WTF files here. This is a thing. Just, why is this a thing? Ford's daughter, that's Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, is an IG famous bodybuilder whose side gig is selling jumbo cookies. And let me tell you something. I can't say for sure. I haven't tried the cookie. I don't know the product. But these look bad. Like, visually speaking, they're not appetizing. Like, what the hell? And, like, there's, like, it's... it's just typical Ford bonkersness. Of course, she's a bodybuilder that's, like, super thin and has, like, no body fat, and sells giant, ridiculous, calorie-packed pastries. Like, how does she eat this stuff? How often? It just, there's something seems contradictory about it. Like, you know how, like, McDonald's is commonly a official sponsor of the Olympics. You know, it just seems like two things that, from marketing wise, are just fundamentally opposed to each other, right? Oh God. So yeah, like, just look at that cookie in this picture. Like, that doesn't look good. Like, the layout of, like, the little candies on it, and, like, the blotchiness of the colors from the, like, the food dyes in the candy, I guess, like, running into the dough. It looks like a piece of a mattress that somebody, like, was murdered on, and then the corpse was, like, half burnt. That's what that cookie looks like. Jesus Christ. And yeah, like, okay, the one she's holding there, like, it's just this, like, lump of misshapen dough with, like look at the little spurts of frosting that are, like, just like, it looks like a cum shot. I'm just gonna say it. It looks like a cum shot. Somebody blasted a load on that cookie. That's what that is. It's just outright cartoonish. So let's add to the cartoonishness of it. What is the company called? What is it called? What do you think she, like, you might have saw it on the screen there already. What they might have called this cookie. This cookie company. Well, let me show you. Wait, I want to get a good shot of the logo here. I closed the other thing where I had it in. Bear with me. Because I need to show you the logo, because that's part of the whole thing here with the logo. I feel that carries the most impact. Let's see here. Photos. Yeah, do I have any actual pictures of this? Okay, there we go. Well, this will serve as a good one. Okay, here we go. Thanks for putting up with me there. Yeah, mattress cookies. Like cookies made from mattresses. Cookies that look like some sort of industrialized foam was involved in the construction of the cookie. You know, like whether it be like that caulking sort of foam that they like use on job sites, or the sort of foam that they use for like memory foam mattresses. It looks like that either way. So let's get another cum shot cookie up on the screen here. There we go. Beautiful looking. And of course the, you know, like beautiful looking, like there's just this that's the most appetizing one I've seen so far. And even then, that's not a good looking cookie. I'm sorry. I really hope it's delicious. It goddamn well better be. Like if somebody made, like if I just made these for myself at home as some sort of mad experiment, like I just wanted to stuff as much chocolate and caramel and frosting into a cookie as I could, and you were just eating it for yourself, that's probably okay. But presentation wise, like giving this to other people as like a thing that you made, like look at this quality thing that I crafted for you, that ain't it. But not only that, let's look at the name here. Kiki or Kai Kai. I don't know. That looks like Kai Kai with the Y's, but it's probably pronounced Kiki. And then cookies with a K. Really went for KKK on that, huh? That was that'd be a real good thing there. Of course, the most obvious joke, if I just scroll up a little bit, there it is. The Krusty Comedy Classic. Oh, KKK. That's not good. You know, like if they're trolling, I gotta think there's got to be some level of a troll to it where it's like, oh, this'll get the libs, but it's like, yeah, that gets us because we have large racism problems still. You are a representative of that racist institution in being the government, and again our genocidal history and all that stuff. You know, yeah, maybe trying to do some sort of I triggered the libs troll on naming yourself KKK. Probably not great. Like, yeah, like it you know who's gonna find that funny is like 12-year-olds who are just discovering the idea of insensitive and edgy humor and have no idea the actual history and impact of what they're saying. That's what that seems like to me. They look awful, and the logo looks awful, and of course, you know, just the massive privilege that comes with the daughter of somebody who is like born into money. Like we're talking to like couple generations deep on the big old trust fund here, and then on top of that, like, you know, Ford has just proven himself to be completely business-wise inept, and then of course through failing upwards, manages to become Premier of Ontario, because that's the goofballs reality that we're living in. And then on top of all that sort of like falling ass backwards into opportunity and privilege comes the Instagram fitness influencer daughter making ridiculous cookies, and then it getting all sorts of coverage, right? Like Narcity isn't coming at this from any critical angle, right? This is totally celebratory how they word this. Like, ambition seems to run in the Ford household. What ambition has Doug Ford ever had? Like, it's not like he pursued running for Premier of Ontario with like a certain vigor, right? Again, like he just sort of fell into it, and it was all very easy, all in all, because the Conservatives made it easy for him. And like it just yeah, fuck her cookies. Indeed. Well, it looks like somebody has fucked her cookies because there's cum all over it. I mean, personally, like some of us might find that a little appetizing, but only in certain contexts, not in anything to do with Ford. So yeah, like ambition seems to run in the Ford household. Like this girl had to work a hard day in her life. The hardest thing she's worked on is her abs, which kudos to her. They actually, she did a good job at that. I'll give her that, assuming that there isn't like, a whole lot of Photoshop polishing going up in there. I don't want to insinuate that. That's probably unfair to insinuate. But also, fuck the Fords. Fuck them. Bunch of privileged people, hacks with no talent, obviously no talent. Look at that freaking cookie, and then they get a write-up that's nothing but praise, right? Like, oh, look at this rich privileged girl doing rich privileged girl things, totally inept to unaware of the suffering that her family has caused. Ambition runs in their family. Sure does. The ambition to add more stupid bullshit into the world, I guess, is probably that ambition. Jesus Christ. I wish I could show you here. I'm going to try and get more of a close-up of this cookie. See if I can, like, open image in new tab. Maybe blow it up for you. There we go. Okay, now you can see that thing a little bit more up close. Like the inconsistent dye from the candy just like running into the dough, and like, what is even happening up in here? What is that? It looks like an actual piece of like a piece of candy with gold foil on it, but she left the foil on. Like, what? That's like, the cookie. You're like, maybe you're a mom with a young kid. I don't know why I went for mom. I associate baking with moms. Sorry, that's my background. Men can bake too, damn it. And again, there's that like gendered language that's programmed into me. I really got to be more self-critical about that. But yeah, maybe you're a parent with a young kid and you're baking cookies around them for the first time, and the kid's like, I want to help too. I'm gonna help mom and dad and bake cookies. I want to be part of this, and that's like their little side cookie that you let them make. And you go, oh, you did such a good job. Look at your first cookie. Yeah, that thing looks mangled, man. That's oh God. At least as far as being a fitness influencer goes, whatever the hell that means, is at least she looks like she's fit. I'll give her that. She can't be eating a whole lot of those cookies, that's for sure. Just no way. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this real quick before I signed off too. So slightly longer episode than usual. But yeah, this was the scene in the north section of Trinity Bellwoods around 1 p.m. today. Not today. This was actually a couple days ago, I believe, 22nd. Yeah. Look at this. Here, let's go back to the beginning. The number of cops. So for people that may not know, there has been here in Toronto at the park Trinity Bellwoods, has been a large homeless encampment for a long time that has obviously become much worse, during COVID. Oh, sorry, I'm getting like a acid reflux thing happening here. Has become much worse over the time of COVID. There is a housing crisis across this country in general in terms of our housing market, renters, landlords, the cost to buy a home. Everything about it is topsy-turvy broken. And it's just economically, if you are not earning like $80K a year, it's shit's rough. It really is. And you know, if you're earning half that or less, you're extra screwed. So yeah, there is a huge economic problem at play here, but of course, the foot soldiers of the ruling class have to come in and put this to a stop. And let's be real about what that function is as police officers. There's high-level crimes that take place amongst the rich and the wealthy constantly. They are bending rules, they are breaking laws, and they get to go, oopsie, I'll pay the fine. Or, you know, that was just business. We made a mistake, and things get swept under the rug, and it's okay. But the crimes that are enforced and cracked down on people, when they send in essentially an army's worth of cops, who is it always for? Who is it always against? Just homeless people trying to live. Does this solve the problem in any capacity? Are these homeless people going to cease being homeless after they've been removed? No. This solves nothing. This just displaces them, so they have to be somewhere else. You're not solving any issues. And of course, like what I saw from some of the reports is they were phrasing, oh, it's like, well, you know, it's okay, everyone. The homeless people have determined that they are going to accept the help from the authorities to get temporary residence somewhere else. That's a lie. I can absolutely say that from the people I've talked to who are boots on the ground that day, who are protesters and activists. That's a lie. Does this look like something where the homeless have a chance to make a choice? Does that look like there's a choice at play happening in this video? Yeah. As Nat is saying in the chat here, could you imagine an army of cops going through Bay Street and dragging every crooked CEO and banker out of their offices? It would be a wet dream. Yeah, absolutely it would be. In a justified world, that would be a more common occurrence in society as we currently know it. If the world decided to wake up one day and be have a sense of justice. Yeah, but you never see that happen. You'll never see it happen. Because if that were to happen, that would just be a full-on sort of proletariat revolution at that point. But yeah, like, so for anybody to walk away at the end of the story and watch some of this other footage of how brutal the police were being, of how aggressive they were being, to think that somehow at the end of that, you can have any integrity in saying, it's okay, everyone, they ultimately chose to leave. It's a lie. It's almost the same sort of lie as, like, say for indigenous people who have been displaced and have suffered brutally at the hands of the RCMP and things like that. It's okay. They chose it. They chose to cooperate with the authorities. There is no choice here. They don't have agency in this situation. That's one of the fundamental problems, is we're continuously robbing huge swaths of people of agency, crushing them underneath the boots of cops and the ruling class, and then kind of washing over the history with rose-colored glasses and go, don't worry, it's fine. They ultimately chose this. We made an agreement. How much of this looks like anybody's in agreement? It's disgusting. Like, you can't possibly believe that. Oh, like, to walk away from this story and go, well, I'm glad they ultimately chose to accept help. It's bullshit. If you have two eyes to see, they did not choose anything here. The only thing they chose was, in order to survive, which wasn't much of a choice in the first place, was to camp in a public park and perhaps have some sense of agency and shelter and not be under the boot of an authority that has probably traumatized them their entire lives, or they've learned to be deeply afraid of and untrustworthy of. So, of course, they're not ready to accept help from them for numerous reasons. Of course. Yeah, that's another thing that gets me about this whole thing too, and the way that we talk about it, is that, I just don't understand why they don't accept help. I don't understand why they would choose to live this way. Let me tell you, they don't. Nobody chooses this. Nobody chooses this. There's a series of holes in our society, and holes and cracks that people slip through and end up in these positions. And not only do we do nothing to help them, we further the disparity. And then, as I was talking about before with the useless jobs thing, let me pull up that quote again, perhaps. The ruling class has figured out that a happy and productive population with free time on their hands is a mortal danger. And on the other hand, the feeling that work is a moral value in itself, and that anyone not willing to submit themselves to some kind of intense work discipline for most of their waking hours deserves nothing. This happens to be extraordinarily convenient for the ruling class. You're seeing that in play here. That anybody who isn't toiling their lives away for 40 hours a week, whether it be at a useful or useless job, a job where they're mostly just sitting there staring at a wall most of the day, as long as they're doing that, then they might deserve to have some dignity. It's a disgusting foot to set off on. We have to create a more reasonable bottom floor here, where we say that every human being is entitled to a certain basic standard of living, no matter what. Period. It's not only entirely doable, it's been done in many ways in the past. So not only is it entirely doable, and it's more doable now than ever, we are not doing it on purpose because much like the Catholic Church refusing to acknowledge their hand in genocide, this is all about maintaining systems of power and control and not wanting to disrupt those systems, not wanting to speak truth to power, right? So hopefully, I like how when I'm just sort of riffing on something, I can relate it back to the stories I was talking about before. I try and do that as often as possible. So I hope that sort of wrapped things up in a neat little package for you all, because I'm about to sign off. I did 25 minutes more than I normally do. I try and keep this show to an hour. If it's sometimes it runs under, so I guess if sometimes it goes over, whatever. So thank you so much to everybody that joined in the stream today. It was a little more chatty and lively than usual. I mean, if you were on Facebook, it was a little bit more. Got a few things in on the YouTube stream there, and a few more live viewers than usual throughout the 3 different platforms I broadcast on, which, in case you didn't know, was Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. This show broadcasts on every Thursday at 7 p.m. So I will be back next week with another episode. I try and encourage people to call in. This isn't the sort of show so far where a lot of people have called in. Or arranged an interview, or to discuss something. But, you know, if you're a random person with a thought that you'd like to contribute to the show, or even argue with me on, if you think I'm just outright wrong about something or missing the point on something, I am more than glad to have a discussion on that live on this platform. And I'm going to be trying setting up ways in the near future to actually make it easier for people to call in. I'd like to get one of those virtual phone numbers where I can just have it up on the screen and say, hey, if you want to call. Because doing it through like different platforms like Facebook and Skype and stuff, it's a little limiting. It's not like everybody has Skype on hand all the time, or has my personal account on Facebook that can easily make the phone call. So I'd like to make that a little more accessible ultimately. So here's to being onward and upward. Again, if you do want to be a part of the show and talk, just send me an instant message in whatever platform you're watching me on, and we'll figure it out, and I'll send you the information needed to have a phone chat. So until next week, thank you so much for joining us on the Rough Report. Stay rough, I guess. I feel like I had something else to say there, but I don't know. All right. See you next week. Oh, yeah, I got a new song coming out. That's right. Wanted to plug the song. Pay attention to the Facebook page. Check out the Spotify. Check out the links down here. Yeah. All the various platforms. You will see that I have a new song coming out on July 21st. I'm very excited about that. But anyways, this has been the Rough Report from live in downtown Toronto. See you next week at